Welcome to Seniority Authority, the podcast where I track down experts to answer your questions on aging. I'm your host, Kathleen Toomey. Let's get smarter about growing older. Here's the quandary. Right now, we are all living longer than any other generation, and that's good news. However, women, who typically live up to 6 years longer than men, are not necessarily spending that time in the best of health. So what's the good news? Up to 90% of your health and longevity is within your control. Did you hear that? 90% of it is within your control. It's not about genes, contrary to what we used to think. If you would like to live a healthier and longer life, stay tuned. Welcome to Seniority Authority. My name is Kathleen Toomey. I'm your host. And today's guest is Maddy Dychtwald, an award-winning author, speaker, and thought leader on longevity, aging, and the new face of retirement. Co-founder of the globally recognized think tank AgeWave, Maddy has studied and researched these topics, wait for it, for over 40 years. Today, we are discussing her research results found in her new book, Ageless Aging, A Woman's Guide to Increasing Health Span, Brain Span, and Lifespan. And just take a look at how many notes I have made in my copy of Ageless Aging. Welcome to the program, Maddy. I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here.
I'm just such a fan of your work and your other books, but this one in particular, Ageless Aging, is so right on topic for myself and for many of our listeners. And you've been at the forefront of this discussion about longevity for more than anyone else I know, 40 years. What drew you to this topic? You were practically a teenager when you started studying longevity.
Well, as you said, close to 40 years in this space. My husband Ken and I started AgeWave literally at our kitchen table back in 1986, and we were not teenagers. But what we knew was that the demographics of aging were really transforming in our country. It used to be, traditionally has been, that all the growth takes place with younger people. And that makes a lot of sense, right? That's how it's always been done. But what we began to notice was that there was a trend taking place that had never happened before. And that is that the changes of growth in the population that were occurring were really transformative. The real growth was taking place in the oldest segments of our population, in the 50 plus population. And that never happened before. What makes it completely, especially at the time, really kind of an opportunity was that at that time, we thought 50 plus was over the hill. And hopefully we don't think that anymore. But we decided that we wanted to be sort of like the Paul Revere's of aging. We wanted to go out there and say the aging are coming, and they are different than what you think. They want to live longer. They want to live better. They have financial well-being, and they're not necessarily brand loyal. They like to do things differently than their parents and grandparents. And you're going to see that. In fact, we are seeing that in the marketplace today.
Absolutely. The boomers are doing what the boomers have always done, which is transform every social norm that's out there. And
that's exactly right.
You're right. We've got new knees, new hips, and continuing to run marathons and travel the world. And I don't know anyone who's living like their grandparents. So this is redefining a whole generation. But what I think some people are still stuck on, and what they don't believe, is they think that genes predetermine everything. And you've pointed out that there is research that shows that up to 90% of our health and longevity is in our own hands. Where does that research come from?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. Throughout most of history, we didn't take responsibility for our health because we didn't really think we had that responsibility. Whatever was in our genetic makeup, that was kind of what was going to happen to us. So, hands off. We didn't have to worry about it. Eat what you want, drink what you want. You don't need to exercise. Doesn't make any difference. But
Very fatalist.
yeah, exactly. Out of our hands.
Yeah.
So, interestingly, a lot of the research and the most recent research that's out of Alphabet's Calico Labs tells us a very different story. In fact, they have flipped the script. They say that no, 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 it's not about your genetics. They are not your destiny. Instead, what they tell us is that your lifestyle and your environment are responsible for up to 90% of your health and well-being. So we have agency over our health and well-being, which is kind of a double-edged sword. Like in one way, it's fantastic news. We can make changes in our life that's going to make a real difference. On the other hand, we are responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love about this Ageless Aging book is that you talk about the healthy life as the new affluence. I love that perspective because we all treasure time, and to consider this the new affluence makes a lot of sense. Can you tell our listeners how you came up with that concept?
Yeah, it's like a great phrase, but I didn't just make it up. Honestly, that's something we learned from one of the studies that we were involved in. We asked people who were retired and people who were younger, still in the workforce, um, what's the most important element of living longer, of your longevity? And without a doubt, it was having good health.
Mhm.
It was more important than having money, having relationships with family and friends. Yeah, it was just about and having a sense of purpose. It was the absolute number one most important thing. And part of the reason, if you were going to like pull the threads on that, is that we know that if you have your health, that first of all, it's going to save you money in terms of what you spend on health as you get older, but it's also going to give you the energy and the vitality to try new things, to maybe reinvent yourself, to spend time with the people you love. And that's why it's so important.
And I think those listeners who have chronic illness would understand, because when you have illness that is constant, it just drains on you, and all you can do is kind of get through the day. So no one wants to do that. In the whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they want to
Yeah.
be well so that they can have activities and engagement and purpose. But if you are racked with pain, that's all you're focused on.
Yeah, and there are things that we can do for pain. And by the way, it's not up to 90% of our health and well-being. So if you get a brain tumor, that's not your fault.
Right.
However, there are some steps you can take from a lifestyle perspective that may help like minimize the pain and minimize the impact. And that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And in the introduction to the book, I love this phrase. You say that men die quicker, but women get sicker. And for you, it was not just research, it was something that you started experiencing in your own life. Can you tell us a little bit about this
Yeah.
journey?
One of the things that I've learned is that aging, it's like playing dodgeball. I mean, you are dodging a lot of health and lifestyle related issues. And, if you can do it effectively, all the more power to you. So, as you said, I've been in this game of aging and longevity for close to 40 years. So I've had my own issues. I'm now 74 years old and
Oh my
I've never
gosh.
felt better, honestly.
You
But
look fantastic.
thank you. I appreciate that. But hopefully, my message is one that other people can embrace as well. So I was having terrible pain, horrible pain about 5 years ago in my hips to the point where I was limping around. I'm a big exerciser. And my son said to me, Mom, what is wrong with you? You look like you're 95 years old. Get yourself to the doctor. So I did, and I tried everything that you can imagine. I got cortisone shots. I tried PRP. I tried stem cells. I literally tried the whole gamut of things. And finally, I got an MRI. And my doctor sat down with me, took both of my hands in his, and he said, "You're going to be okay, but you are bone on bone in both of your hips.
Ugh.
You have hip dysplasia. You were likely born with it. And today we do things for little kids who have it, but you're way too old for that to have taken place." So first of all, I burst out hysterical crying.
Mm.
And then I said, well, what would you do if you were me? That's always my line with a doctor. What would you do if you were me? And he said, I would get a double hip replacement and I'd do it as fast as I can. And I knew that if I did one hip and then did the other, I would never get to the second hip. That's just not who I am. So I found a doctor who specialized in double hip replacement. But he couldn't see me to do the surgery for months. So I said to him, okay, so what should I do in the meantime? And he said, well, I don't know, maybe get a cane. And I'm like, "Huh, I don't want to go there unless I really need to." So I did my own research. One of the great things about being at AgeWave is I have this great network of experts, scientists, physicians, people at the cutting edge of health and longevity. And I called on them and I asked them, what should I do? And there was a series of things that they suggested that I took advantage of. The first thing I did was I changed my diet.
Mm.
And frankly, my diet was really healthy. I mean, I haven't eaten meat in 30 years, and
Wow.
I eat a very plant-based, plant-forward, not just plants, but based diet. But I changed my diet to be anti-inflammatory. I wanted to get rid of all the inflammation in my body. So I stopped eating gluten. I stopped eating dairy. And I limited as much as I could sugar because that's really almost impossible to get out of your diet completely. So anyway, and a magical thing happened. And I
What?
mean magical. Within a matter of weeks, like literally 6 weeks, all the pain in my hips went away.
Wow.
It was
That's
crazy.
incredible.
It was incredible. And I also started meditating, which I'd never done before. I'm still not great at it, but I do try it every day.
I have a hard time with it myself.
It's not my thing necessarily. I changed some of my sleep related issues, really tried to manage my stress so that I didn't wake up in the middle of the night and go into like anxiety places, which I have a tendency to do. And so this is the interesting thing. Not only did the pain go away, but I had a great side effect. And that is that the doctor told me, okay, expect to be in the hospital for 4 to 5 days, expect to not be able to walk without assistance for a month. And I couldn't figure out, how do you walk with 2 hip replacements?
Yeah.
And he said, trust me, it'll work. It'll be fine. So doing all the things that these different experts told me, and there was a whole list of them that I talk about in Ageless Aging. I was out of the hospital in one day. And
Wow.
you can't get out of the hospital unless you can walk stairs. And one of the nurses gave me an excellent piece of advice. She said, if you can walk up one stair, you can do 100. So keeping that in mind, I was able to get out in one day. And then when I got,
phenomenal.
I know.
From
it
a
was
double hip
incredible.
replacement?
Double hip. Nobody could believe it. And I got so many friends who were docs saying to me, no, you don't want to do this. It sounds horrible. But then when I got home, within 2 days, maybe it was 3, I was walking without any assistance, without a cane, without a walker, without anything except on the stairs. I used a cane. But I said, no, I'm not making any changes in my life. I'm just going to try to make it as easy and as comfortable as possible, but without bringing my bed down to the main floor. I didn't want to do any of that. So yeah, I didn't have to. And it worked out great. I walked like a duck, mind you, for the first week or two, but I was able to get around on my own and it was fantastic.
Now, if we have some listeners who want to try this, who want to maybe start an anti-inflammatory diet, are there recommendations? I know I would highly recommend everyone get the book, but for right now, is there something that you would suggest that people, our listeners, do today, tomorrow to start changing their diet?
I don't want to say it was easy, but it was easy. I have had people on Facebook or Instagram reach out to me and say, okay, how do I do this? And I tell them, and they go, oh, no, that sounds way too hard. But it's not. It really isn't. You just have to kind of own it and do it. And dairy was maybe the hardest part, but I wasn't
Mhm.
like crazy about it. It was like if I had a pizza in front of me, as long as it was a gluten-free pizza, and gluten-free pizzas are really good.
Yeah,
If
they've come a long way.
they have come a long way. If there was some like mozzarella on it, I was like, okay, whatever, I'll do it.
Mm.
I wasn't driving myself or the people around me crazy. And the people around me could easily have been going a little crazy.
Awesome. Okay. Why is food so important?
Well, I remember my grandmother used to tell me, "You are what you eat."
Mhm.
And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I think that food is like the building block of our cellular development, of our muscles, of our organs. So the more healthy things we can put in our body, the better. It's a really great hack to living better longer is to make some simple changes in your diet. And another side to that that people are talking about more and more and ought to be talking about even more is hydration. We want to be hydrated, especially as we get older, especially women. Hydration becomes super important. And a little bit of Celtic salt on your tongue, like just like a dime's worth before you drink your water will help your body absorb it better. And that's really something that we should all do. It's easy. You'll feel better. You're not going to believe you're going to have far more energy by hydrating.
Oh, I hydrate constantly but I'm not familiar. Did you say Celtic salt?
Yes,
Like
Celtic salt.
Celtic?
Celtic. Yeah,
I've
you can
never
get it
heard of
at
that.
you can get it anywhere. Safeway, Whole
Okay.
Foods, Trader
Okay.
Joe's.
Is it similar to sea salt?
It's not the same, but it's similar.
Okay. Okay. I will give it a try because I think
Give it a
I
try. It's really worth it.
okay. I'll do that because I drink constantly. I don't drink when I'm on the podcast, but that's the
Well,
only time I
obviously
know.
I do.
Yeah, I know. And that's good. Another key component of changing our health span, as you point out in the book, is exercising regularly. And you note some fun longevity assessment tests that are in this book that I love, like the Flamingo test that our listeners can do right now to assess their own fitness. Can you talk about what those are?
Sure. In ageless aging, I give a lot of what I call hacks, and I try to make them where possible, something that's free or low cost.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really important point so that living better longer, it's available to all of us. So I want to begin by saying that. So any of you ever do any yoga poses where you're standing up and you lift one leg, at the knee, you raise your knee and you put your foot on your opposite knee so that you look a little like a flamingo. And then if you're really going to go full tilt, you take your hands and you put them in a prayer mode above your head. That's the flamingo test. And you want to be able to do that on each leg individually for about 10 seconds. At least 10 seconds. And you know what? You may start doing it at 2 seconds or three, and you will find within 10 days, you're up to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. And balance is one of the keys to living better longer. You really want to have balance because you don't want to fall and break a hip or hurt yourself in any way at all. And having good balance will help keep you living better longer, really. So that's the flamingo test. The other is the sit to stand test. And with a caveat, because as a double hip replacement person, it's a little harder to do. It's almost impossible for someone who's had hip replacements to do, but to do it as well as you can, and that is to cross your legs, one foot in front of the other, and in a cross-legged position, sit down and on the ground. And you don't want to, if you can, you don't want to hold on to anything. But when you start, when you're just gaining your like ability to do this, hold on to something. Hold on to, like, maybe it's a chair or maybe the back of a sofa or something, or a table, so that you get down with holding onto as few things as possible. And then you want to raise yourself up. And that's something that really requires your glute muscles and your abdominal muscles to really take hold, to really take part in this. And as you try to do this in the beginning, you may laugh at yourself because you may do such a horrible job. But over time, you're going to get great at it. And it's an easy way to build your confidence from a fitness perspective.
And I think that's why this book is so great, because the assessments are in there, the recommendations are in here, the food diet is in here. Tell our listeners who are older women what you feel the ideal amount of time is to exercise and what is the best exercise to do.
Okay, so that's kind of a loaded question because I think that there are 6 different kinds of body movements we need to make in order to live better longer, and they all become very important as we get older, but you can combine them. Let me begin by saying that. So, what I think is kind of like the silver bullet, one that can really help you to live better longer and feel energetic and vital is muscle strengthening.
Mhm.
And as early as in our 30s, we develop what's called sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is like a fancy way of saying you're losing muscle mass. And you don't want to lose muscle mass. That, first of all, it looks bad, it feels bad, and it doesn't give you the strength in order to even take care of some of the basics in life. And you don't want to go there. But the great news is that even if you've lost some of your muscle mass, you can build it back up.
I
And
love that. I
I
just
know,
love
it's
that.
great. It's like it's never too late.
Yeah.
And that is such great news. I say do muscle strengthening exercises and get out those bands and get those hand weights. And, there's so many things on YouTube that will help you to do that. Do it at least 3 to 5 times a week for 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
And you're going to start feeling better within weeks.
Yeah. No question. And it's so exciting that women over 60 who have never lifted weights before can improve their muscle density. It is never too late.
That's a good message.
Finally, can you share some of the aging hacks that help our brains that we can all start doing?
Keep in mind that women and men don't age the same way. You already mentioned this, and I'll just repeat it. We women have this gift. We've won the longevity lottery. We have an extra 5 to 6 years of life that men don't have. And that's great news. But as you also alluded to, it's women, when it comes to long life, our health spans don't match our lifespans. And we do even worse than men. We spend the last, on average, 12 to 14 years in a cascade of poor health. And that is not good news. Very bad news. Let me add another bad piece of news, and that is that women are twice as likely to suffer from cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease as men are.
Is that
Twice as
because
likely.
we're living longer, or
Yeah,
is that
that would
just
be
a
the assumption, right? It's
yeah,
not the only
yeah.
reason.
Okay.
Uh, that's not the only reason. Some of it, scientists aren't really sure. I don't want to put out something that's not conclusive at all. So it's a variety of different things, some of which have a hormonal basis. So if women are under the age of 65 and are not doing hormone replacement, I would strongly urge them to see a menopause specialist. And you can just Google it and
Mhm.
find one that's near you because it's an important piece of the puzzle to have your hormonal game in alignment. So that's one thing. Second thing, and the most important thing to remember, is that what's good for our heart is also good for our brain.
Mhm.
So we already mentioned exercise and eating a healthy diet. These are essential pieces of the puzzle if you want to maintain your brain span and maybe even grow some brain span. Wouldn't that be great, right?
And as women, we have to pay more attention to this than men.
That's exactly right. There's other pieces. And one of them is it's not one of my superpowers, and that is sleep. But I'm getting better at it because I did all the research for ageless aging, and I saw that, oh, okay, sleep science is really morphing. It's becoming circadian rhythm science. So, what does that mean? Well, it means when you get up in the morning, the first thing you ought to do is either go outside, even in the cold, even in the rain, or open your blinds or shades and take in the sun for at least 10 minutes. And it will help regulate your circadian rhythm so that you can sleep through the night. And that's a really important piece of the puzzle. Of course, learning, this is something we hear all the time, but that doesn't mean doing the New York Times crossword puzzle or playing Wordle. Sorry, I wish it did, but it means learning a new language. It means doing something completely differently than you've ever done before. So that's really an important piece of the puzzle. Believe it or not, oral health is a huge element, something that you really want to pay attention to. And once I saw that, I really started paying attention to my oral microbiome. I wanted it to be in the best health. And something that we sometimes don't think about, that there's a lot more, by the way. Open up Ageless Aging to that chapter. You will see a whole list of things. Now, get your hearing checked. But one of the things I wanted to focus on was that gut-brain connection. One of the experts that I spoke to, a neuroscientist from Lausanne, who heads up a biotechnology company that is doing clinical trials right now for a vaccine for Alzheimer's disease. She told me the only supplement she takes is a probiotic. And she said, I'm not exactly sure of all the science behind the gut-brain connection. I just know there is one. And this is insurance for me. I take a probiotic.
Oh, and I do too. And I want to say, we have packed so much information into this short time. Please go out and get this book. Do yourself a favor, do your future self a favor, and get this book. Open up a chapter. You can make a difference to your future self now. So there's no time like the present. I want to thank you, Maddy, for being here and for sharing so much information. And I just want to say thank you for writing this book. It's amazing, and it is going to help many people. And thank you for your time today on the podcast.
My pleasure, and I appreciate your kind words.
That's our show for today. If you enjoyed it, please give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Join us on Facebook and Instagram. And most of all, tell your friends so we can all get smarter about growing older. That's our show for today. If you liked it, please tell your friends so we can reach more minds and keep the conversation going. Or follow us on social at Seniority Authority. I'm Kathleen Toomey. Until next time, enjoy your chance to get smarter about growing older.